Jason. I've been doing bonsai here in Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia for about 11 years. This YouTube channel is to document some of my growth, some learning, and how I deal with mainly the Ficus species here in Australia. Our climate is very different to the main post to see of the North Americans dealing with Ficus over there, and we have a few different species native that we use that aren't readily talked about over there. I found it difficult with my learning to find all this information, though Ficus are pretty much tough as nails here and nearly impossible to kill in the climate from Sydney, New South Wales, north to the top of Queensland, unless you get up into the mountains, which is Pacific zones. But if you're on the coast there, that's pretty safe. Also, I'm going to try and get through the next year to go and visit some other bonsai artists. They're at backyards. I'm just a hobbyist who still knows very little and learning a lot, but I want to try and get out there and share other people's knowledge to help grow bonsai here for Australia with easy access for those who are wanting to just try it, have a bit of fun. I do suggest our native Ficus, the Port Jackson and the Moreton Bays, as great starting trees. Port Jackson more so because of the leaf reduction size, something we'll talk about later. Today though, what I'm going to be doing, this is my first YouTube video. I want to try and learn how to edit, see what my sound quality is like, and the tree that we're doing today is my Ficus Natalensis, which is actually a South African fig. It was given to me as a cutting originally about 11 years ago. It was about yay long with about 3 branches coming off it that were all pencil thick at the thickest, and had a couple of leaves each. So 11 years on, is about what we're about to see. I've already taken it out of its original pot. I like to give her, I call it her, a bath beforehand, so soak to help get all the soil out. She has been in organic soil her whole life. Today I'm going to move to a semi-organic mix, so instead of being a normal potting mix, or what I've been using is a cactus mix, and a cactus and succulent mix, I'm going to be using more along the lines of what other people say creates finer roots, so going to be less organic. There's still some organic matter in there, as I don't get a chance to water it periodically every day, and I'm bringing the pot size down a little bit. Please stay tuned. I hope this video is not terrible. So here we have her original pot. It's about 35 to 40 centimeters across. It's at 12, 13, about 14 to 16 inches, and not much shorter on the other side. Now, the new pot fits quite well with inside the other pot, as you can see. So we're losing probably a third of the total space for the roots in there. Back again, this is Natalie. This is Ficus Natalensis. I call her Mother Natalie, as every year I take a bunch of cuttings off her, propagate them, and she becomes the mother to all these other little trees. Every year I manage to give away a few. I keep some, lose some in my garden, and the idea, I want to eventually have a bunch of different ones I can give away to people who come to my garden, my yard, barbecues or whatever else. They see this and some of my other bonsais and say, I really like that, that's cool. Comes around at Christmas and often I give them one. It's something I keep going on. I want to encourage other people to do bonsai and learn about it. Now, the original cutting I had of Natalie was actually smaller than this branch here. And over 11 years, as you can see, she's become quite big. Now, you can see down here, I tried to fan out as best I can a lot of her roots. There's still a lot of organic mass underneath here. Now these roots were all in that larger pot, and obviously by the length of them they weren't going straight out as is desired by most. They were bunching, turning, twisting, and though these are not the super fine roots that you will see on many top level bonsai, they're also not the worst. This tree I have been working on, as I said, for about 11 years. Originally it was just a learning tree. I've been cutting, chopping, taking off things, removing different parts as I go, and she has now come into being what she currently is. Please excuse the video skills. So she's getting bigger, thicker, but now I want to try and slow her down and do some finer branching, maybe even take some of those thicker ones off and turn them into smaller starters. I'm still very much learning about the video side of things as well, and what I'm going to share with you today is trying to get this into its new pot with its new mix. Now, this is an experimental video and I needed to do this anyway. So we can see, can we see that when I do that? Yeah, the finer roots down here. There's enough feeder roots there that with the weather we have here at this time of year, I should be able to cut like that for 90% of what's going to be happening here. I'm going to put them into the original pot, and that way we can do some carnage cam that seems to be popular on YouTube. So that's my carnage cam. I didn't actually take that much off, what I was expecting to do. I've kept a lot on, most on the underneath, as I want to try and keep her within much vigor as possible for this repotting process, as in a few weeks I hope to take her down and restyle her with help of someone who's been doing this for over 50 years. So I have the pot ready to go, I've got the gauze in. Next thing I'm going to do is put my new less organic soil mix in. There's perlite, zeolite, lacquer, which is light expanded clay aggregate, or hydro clay they use for pine bark chunks, and I've got a organic bonsai mix that I've put through that you can buy from Bunnings here in Australia, little bag, not that expensive, not that cheap. I don't think it's any better than the succulent stuff. I bought it just to see what it was like, and figured when I'm going this way I put other stuff in as well. So it's only probably a fifth of actually that stuff, and the rest is everything else. My measurements weren't exact. I basically bought a bag of each and just put them all in together. So it's an interesting mix. So here, you see it does have a really soil quality like attribute to it, or dirt, but there is also all those other things to give it a better start. Now, I cover the bottom of the pot, probably 1.5 cm, 2 centimeters, or half an inch to almost an inch, depending on who you are, where you're from. And now I'm going to try and see if the Mother Natalie can fit into this pot. I have measured it before, and now the idea is to try and get those roots into place. Some of these, which are some thicker old ones which were there for character, I'm leaving as is. Others I'll probably be using to try and replace some of these and move them in. And this big one here is going to get removed. So it's sticking out at the front. Told can grow from root cuttings. I haven't tried, but I think I will. As you can see here, if we push these out a little bit, it gives you a decent little shape there for a nice little starter with another aerial root off there, if it does actually grow. As I said, I haven't tried it, but I will. But for now, I'm just going to quickly chuck that in the carnage pile. And so now what I'm doing here, I'm checking the rest of this, making sure yes, it does fit, which it does quite well, if a little tight. But I want it actually to sit raised to about there. So barely, the roots will be just going into the top of the lip, so I have to put a lot more soil in, which will give them room to grow. So over the next summer period, which we're just coming into here in Australia, we're in mid to late spring, we will find, or in my area, we'll find that she will push a lot of growth over the next couple of weeks. And that will also push a lot of roots into this soil. Now the reason I'm changing this type of soil is this is supposed to give the tree a lot more refined roots than your normal potting mix, and the finer roots are supposed to then produce finer growth, which means less trimming back for ramification. I haven't actually done this, so this is an experience for me as well, and as I said, I'm keeping it a little bit more organic, as I've only ever grown in organic, and I know I can water less with organic, and I'm a full-time worker with a side hobby job, and I also have young children and all that sort of stuff, so I don't have the time always to be out here watering as often as I'd like and giving the tree the attention that as much attention as I was like. So as a base hobbyist, I've learned over the 11 years that I generally do pretty good in a normal soil. Now this root here, which you can see is very, very long, I've kept it very long. It's an aerial root from up higher, but I'm wanting it to fuse with the others, so I'm leaving it longer because I don't want it to kill off. Now, unfortunately, yes, it will then turn around and run, but I think I'm going to cut it off just where it starts to branch out here. This main part here, the thickened one, can definitely go, and I'm just going to leave these 4 smaller shoots. I'm really trying to encourage more of the roots to branch, thicken and fuse above the normal surface. You may see a lot of other people will chopstick or use that sort of stuff to push these in, and the reason they do that is to make sure there's no air pockets, so the roots stay good and healthy. And my lower roots on this, definitely that is needed. Most of the upper roots though on this tree are aerial roots that have grown over time and pushed on down. They've hardened off in the air, and with ficus trees they will do that. If roots get exposed to the air, they harden off, and they don't like cold. Ficus trees in general don't like cold, but the roots definitely don't like cold weather. But this tree in particular can grow roots over the top of the pot and down to the ground if I left her unchecked for a good humid summer. and from this height to that height quite easily, which is, you know, probably 1 metre high, 3 feet. You could definitely do that in one summer sitting with a few aerial roots going across either the surface or off the branches and down to the ground if it was humid enough and you kept the water up enough. I generally try and trim most of those off once they get past a certain length, and I try and keep them close to the body of the trunk so that it will fuse and give it the character that I like to see in a lot of big native trees, where native ficus, even though this one's not a native, where you see them coming off and going down and having layers to the nabari, to the trunk, to the base, everything. Just, it's something I like. If you don't like it, cut them all off. It's your tree. And there's something definitely in this hobby which we call bonsai, which is not really truly bonsai here in Australia, but it's growing little trees in little pots. Go to your aesthetic, find what you like and do what you like. It's not about pleasing other people, it's about pleasing yourself. But if in pleasing yourself that you want to go for that Japanese style and that is something you're striving for, go for it. Or if you're like me and you like to do gnarly weird looking things with gnarly weird little species of ficus, do that. So I'm just going to finish packing this in. Now I still don't really want air pockets, but I'm also not as worried about it with this particular tree. If I was potting up other trees, it would be a different matter. But for one, I know she can take it. I know it doesn't matter if there's a little bit of air pockets there. And the other part is I'm slightly raising it up out of the soil level anyway, so it's going to grow how it grows. I have pretty much covered up all the ones I've raised up, but that soil level will slowly fall away again as it settles and expose more roots. Now I'm going to water it in and let it sit in light overhead water just to help moisten that soil, help it settle in a bit. Wash the dust off my hands as well. Now you don't want too much pressure on the topsoil, because otherwise what you're going to do is dislodge soil. So I was to use a jet stream like that. For a tree this size, the shower heading at a decent distance is okay. For a smaller tree, probably best to use just a mist setting. And if you want to grow aerial roots on a ficus, use the mist setting 3 to 4 times a day over a nice warm summer, and you'll end up with a bunch of them if it's semi-restrained in the pot. And that's another reason I've chucked this into a smaller pot, not just to slow down the growth, but once it fills up, I will get more aerials, more offshoots, and be able to make that look of that gnarly ficus, which I'm trying to go for with this one. Now, I'm going to wait. When I take it to see someone else, we're going to style it, restyle it, and maybe get rid of some of the big older branches on this. You can probably see in here, there's a gap between that aerial root. I'll put my finger through from the other side maybe. See that finger there? There's a nice big thick aerial root there. It sticks out from that trunk just there. If we cut that off, we have an instant shohin style with one single chunky root, but that will help keep it alive to begin with. And you can remove that root later. But there's also other points up here. The crown there, it's got lots of scarring from where I've cut branches off over time. And now I'm at the point where I could probably use something else as a crown, and I can even take that off straight there, which would give you fingers length high chunky base to start another small bonsai. These are thoughts, these are ideas. I started with less thickness than that and for about double that length on this tree. Yeah. Okay, so that's my very first video. I hope it hasn't been too bad. I'm not going to worry about telling you to like and subscribe because you guys all know to do that if you're watching YouTube anyway. This long branch here is for grafting back on over top. That's the main reason I'm growing it and a few others.